Hello. So we are on chapter 12. The last thing that happened on chapter 11 was we met Victor, who now is a Stasi, but he used to be friends with Fritz. And Gerda is worried that when Fritz has to go to the military, he is going to kind of turn into that same type of stone cold person that Victor turned into. So now, chapter 12. Fritz and I agreed we shouldn't tell Mama about Herr Krause's arrest and the trouble I'd nearly gotten into there. She seemed happier lately, and neither of us wanted to ruin it for her. We're in a routine again, Mama often said at dinner. That is good. But the routine was starting to wear on me, and something about reading the stamped message from Herr Krause made me want to see my father again. It seemed like something Papa would have said if he were here. The next morning I looked for him as I approached the crowded platform. It was Saturday, only a half day of school for us, but my least favorite day to walk there because of the Western tourists who often came to the wall on the weekends. They took pictures, brought their binoculars, and stared into our world as if we either needed or wanted their pity. I hated that they watched helplessly but did nothing for us. Then I stopped, as if I had just seen myself in a mirror for the very first time. Who was I to complain about them? Wasn't I guilty of the same thing, of staring helplessly and doing nothing about my own problems? The tourists couldn't do anything for me. Not even the powerful governments of the West could break through what they called the Iron Curtain. And everyone inside East Germany with any sort of influence stood shoulder to shoulder with Russia. No, there was only one person who could change my situation: me. A couple of Grenzers were patrolling the wall this morning, but I didn't have their attention yet, nor did I care. I knew down to my toes that my father would be on the platform and I wanted to see him. I didn't at first, but then as I kept walking forward, Dominic pushed to the front of the crowd and pointed to me. He gave a whoop I thought I could hear from where I stood, and then called down. Almost instantly, my father was on the platform too. He started into his dance with the digging, but the platform was far too crowded, and he didn't need to do it. I understood what he wanted, just not where. So I counted out 3 long and deliberate paces. Then, with only a peek his way, I knelt on the ground and drew a small X. X marks the spot. My father nodded back to me, and I hoped he understood what I wanted to know. The problem was that even if he did, how could he possibly communicate to me something as complicated as where I should be digging, or what sort of treasure I might be looking for? It had been risky enough for me to draw the X, and though I quickly brushed it out with my foot afterward, I still drew the attention of a couple guards in the tower, who shouted down for me to walk on. I quickly obeyed and hurried away with my heart pounding. But it wasn't from fear, it was excitement for what my father might do next. Only a few days later, I found out. On most school days, our teacher allowed us some time in the afternoon to quietly study with one another. And since it was near the end of the school year, there were some important tests coming up, so she gave us more study time than usual. Although Anna had successfully avoided being anywhere near me for weeks, this time the teacher assigned her to join my group, and the only spare seat was right next to me. I glanced sideways at her, but she did a good job of pretending not to notice me. Anna, I whispered, can we talk? She answered by raising the book in front of her face so that no one, especially me, could see her. A sour-faced boy across from us snorted, "Since when did she become too good for the rest of us?" I kicked him in the shins. Hard. When he started to complain, I slouched like I was preparing to kick him again, and I would have if necessary. From the corner of my eye, I noticed Anna lower her book just a little, and I was pretty sure I caught the barest hint of a smile. Nearing the end of group time, we were discussing the causes of America's Great Depression when Anna silently slipped a folded paper into my hand. All school kids know how to secretly pass notes, but this one surprised me. I wanted to thank her. No, I wanted to grab her shoulders and pull her into the tightest hug ever, but I didn't do either. Instead, I slipped the note between the pages of my folder and began counting the minutes until school ended. Once we were dismissed, I quickly found a quiet spot under a tree, and only then did I dare to unfold the paper. At first, what I saw made no sense. It was just a pencil drawing of an old building, square and made entirely of brick. There were two long windows in the front, but with no glass in them except for jagged pieces in the corners. An old chimney ran up the side of the building, but the bricks were shaded darker, suggesting it was an addition to the original place. There were three ground level windows openings too, but no door, so I might have been looking at the back of the building. That frustrated me. As hard as it would be to find any building in East Berlin, it would be nearly impossible to see the backs of them without wandering from yard to yard. Anna couldn't draw a circle, much less a building, so I knew this hadn't come from her. But there was no letter, no artist's signature, and no explanation of why I should have received it. Anna walked past me a minute later. I stuffed the picture into my folder and then caught up to her. "Nothing's changed," she said. "Please go away." I will in a minute. Just tell me about that picture." "I don't know anything about it." But she had to know something. So I touched her arm and said, "Please, Anna, then I'll leave." She stopped and I saw tears in her eyes. She looked around us and then, in a voice so low I could barely hear it, said, "We have family in West Berlin. Someone told them about Peter's death and they sent us a letter of consolation. This picture was in that letter with your first name on it, but I don't know why or where it came from." It was from my father. I was sure of that. And while I was less certain, I thought Dominic might have done the drawing. He used to be artistic, though I have no way of knowing if he still was. I started to tell her so, but she shook her head to cut me off and said, "Don't say anything else, please. You don't want me to know why you got that." "I don't even know." She started to leave, but I added, "Anna, I want us to be friends." I thought I saw her soften just for a minute. Then her face became stone again until I barely recognized her as the girl I had once known so well. "I hid the picture before my parents saw it," she said. "But you and I both know it means something. I can't do any more favors for you, Gerda. Next time I will tell someone." I backed away to let her leave. If she suddenly pulled a mask from her face, revealing a Stasi officer in disguise, I wouldn't have been any more surprised than I already was, because that's who it felt like I was talking to. And who knew, maybe I was. I looked at the drawing one more time before setting off for home. Well, not directly home. Somewhere in East Berlin, this building was waiting for me. I needed to find it, and that's where I would dig. Answer the question on Google Classroom.